Hi, welcome to Newspaper Article Lucky Dip. My name is Jenny. We've into our second season of this now, and these are really a lucky dip of articles that I've come across during research for other projects that weren't relevant to the projects themselves. So not all the articles are Scottish in origin. They can come from any era, and they can be on any subject and relating any incident at all. It's an incident that's going to have grabbed my attention while doing a project previously. Enough for me to save it aside for this very moment. So I'm not going to do the whole trigger warning thing because I don't know what we're going to get out the hat today. And that's not to say that trigger warnings potentially aren't merited. If you feel you're of a sensitive disposition, check the description below to find out what articles are pulled out the hat this time round, because I have no idea as we're sitting here right now. I did try in the first season to cover my bases, but you can get absolutely anything from these articles. So do look in the description below if you feel like there may be reports that come out that may affect you adversely. So we'll get into this one, shall we? Let's just get started. Got my hat full of newspaper titles and dates, so I have no idea what we're going to get. And all of these articles were articles that I maybe last saw months ago, so my memory's not good enough to even hazard a guess at what we've yet to come round this time. So, to start us off, we have the Edinburgh Evening News for the 15th of February, 1878. Let's see what this has for us. Okay, so this is given us initially an article entitled A Strange Occurrence. Mr. Humphreys held an inquest on Tuesday at the Duke of Wellington, Wellington Street, Victoria Park, London, on the body of a man named Richard Emmett, aged 28. The deceased and his wife have lived unhappily together, and he had on several occasions threatened to take her life and had frequently ill-treated her. On Saturday evening she induced him to go to a music hall with her, and whilst there, by previous arrangement unknown to the deceased, the furniture had been removed to a house in Temple Street, Bethnal Green. Deceased and his wife made a call in the Kingsland Road, and she there left him in a friend's house. Finding she did not return, the deceased went to his house in Hollybush Gardens, and found that the whole of the furniture had been clandestinely removed while he was at the Cambridge Music Hall. Not knowing where his goods had been removed to, or the whereabouts of his wife, he became exasperated and committed suicide with a shoemaker's knife. There was not a particle of furniture in the house, and in a back room the deceased lay upon the floor, saturated with blood. A verdict of suicide, whilst in an unsound state of mind, was returned. The wife was severely censured for her deceitful conduct. I'm not entirely sure she would have expected that reaction from him. I think her overriding feeling on finally having escaped this unhappy marriage was the fear that he may come after her, may try to find her and seek some kind of retribution. I don't know that anyone would have assumed that to be the response he might have had to discovering his wife and furniture were gone. So, okay, that's an not very positive story to start us off, is it? We'll see what the next one has. We have the Caledonian Mercury, one of my favourite publications, for the 16th of January 1819. See what the Cali Mercury has for us. Okay, so this article is a little more positive if the title's anything to go by. we have Marriage of Lord Erskine. The marriage of this eminent lawyer is not generally known, although it took place so far back as October last at Gretna Green. It is certain that little notice of this remarkable event has yet appeared in the public prints. In October his lordship arrived at Gretna, accompanied by Miss Sarah Buck, the present Lady Erskine, by whom he had had several children out of the pale of wedlock. He was dressed in fashionable female attire, with a large leghorn bonnet and long veil. On the arrival of the officiating priest of the Temple of Hymen, his lordship threw off his dress and appeared in propria persone, and the usual ceremony being gone through, the parties were declared man and wife. His lordship again put on his female vestments, and was on the point of taking his departure when his son, the Honourable Thomas Erskine, made his appearance in a chaise and four, but the knot was tied, and shortly after the new married couple drove off. The bride is about 35 years old, the noble bridegroom nearly 70. The object of this very extraordinary step is said to be for the purpose of legalising the children of this connection, who, according to Scottish law, cease to be illegitimate on the marriage of their parents at any time. And that's from Aris's Birmingham Gazette, related in the Caledonian Mercury for the 16th of January 1819. That's very strange that he felt he had to put on a disguise, but then his son was obviously there to stop him, because it says, but the knot was tied, so it seems like he was there to prevent that from happening. Perhaps feeling like his inheritance was perhaps going to go to those other than himself. Perhaps he had been the only legitimate child of the lords prior to this marriage and the children being made legitimate. That's very strange. To be honest, I'm surprised by that. If you consider the huge problems women had in retaining a boyfriend or partner, even husband in some cases, on their getting pregnant, there was a huge, seemingly widespread problem of single mothers in the 19th century. You also had these people, these lords, earls, dukes, people for money, who would have their way with poorer females, working class females, who would have thought that perhaps their luck had changed, perhaps they were going to have an easier life, should they be able to partner up with their richer bedfellow. But on getting them pregnant, these men would just abscond and have nothing to do, and it was the woman that carried the shame in that scenario. Always a woman. That was right up until the 60s and 70s, possibly even a wee bit later than that here though, having children out of wedlock. So I feel I have to commend Lord Erskine here for actually following through and marrying the mother of his illegitimate children, because there were many unlike him. So we'll have another one, shall we? Keep an eye on the time. I don't like these things to go on for ages, you know. Here we have the wonderfully titled journal North Briton for the 4th of September 1872. I don't remember ever coming across a South British journal. Okay, so we had an article previously, possibly in the last series, and it was women who were attempting to enter the trade of whip making, and the writer of the article had been all for it. Couldn't understand why women wouldn't be as good at the job as their male counterparts. So here we have something similar. At least that's what I'm gathering from the title here. We have female labour in the post office. I cannot congratulate the clerks of the post office on their hymn of praise at the discomfiture of Mr. Monsell and Mr. Scudamore. The proposal to introduce women into the letter department of the post office was a thoroughly sound one, inasmuch as it added another to the too few doors which are open to women. Women are allowed to work in the telegraphic department. No thanks, however, to the post office. They were already at work there when Mr. Monsell's department took over the telegraphs, and it was impossible to banish employees who were doing their work well merely because they belonged to the less worthy gender. There is every reason to believe that they would have worked equally well in the letter department, but so great has been the outcry on the part of the worthier gender that the authorities have abandoned their intention. I find it difficult to speak of this affair with calmness. I confess that I am ashamed of my sex when I find men clamouring for protection against the weaker sex. If men are better than women, they need no protection. If they are no better, then they do not deserve it. Women have as much right to be employed in the public services as men, and the government has a perfect right to select its servants from either sex. Seeing that one sex monopolises all the highest posts and the best paid employments, it is lamentable that it should exhibit much selfishness, as has just been manifested by the post office clerks. And that's from a correspondent of Mail, and related in the North Briton for the 4th of September 1872. I don't know what I can say about that article other than hear. We'll have another one to finish us. Hopefully it won't be very long. Hopefully it'll also be somewhat positive. I like finishing on a negative note in these things. Okay. We have the Dumfries Galloway Standard for the 23rd of October, 1850. We'll see what the Dumfries Galloway Standard has for us. Okay, the title doesn't tell us much about this one. We have Strange Occurrence. On Wednesday last, a horse and cart belonging to a country dealer were standing at a shop door in Dalbeattie when the animal, from some cause or other, became frightened and started off in the direction of the burn, into the middle of which he quickly plunged, taking the cart along with him. The granite steps which cross the stream were soon reached, but contrary to the expectations of the spectators, these did not form a sufficient hindrance to the career of the frightened animal. He cleared them at a bound, and pulled his load after him, and away over the very rocky and boulder-covered channel of our useful stream, through pool and ford, until he reached the bridge. Here a convenient landing-place appeared, but as if determined to follow the burn to the sea, he persevered, passed below the arch, and actually went, cart and all, over the col which crosses the stream. By this time these unwonted exertions had proved too much even for a horse of spirit, and some onlookers at last succeeded in seizing the reins and disentangling him from the broken gear. The poor horse, strange to say, was scarcely hurt, and the cart had received no damage. The owner congratulated himself on being out of the vehicle when his steed started, this being the second narrow escape at least which he has made, as he is the veritable Hugh Gallagher, who many years ago was brutally assaulted and indeed left for dead in the Carse of Stooks by a man named McGrory, who was tried and executed at Dumfries for the crime. That's from a correspondent of the Courier, related in the Dumfries Galloway Standard for the 23rd of October 1850. This guy maybe has 9 lives, perhaps. He obviously has someone looking out for him. And when it said it was the second narrow escape, I had initially assumed it was the horse that had perhaps almost killed his master previously. But, yeah, that was all lucky, no damage, bit of a tired horse, and your man Hugh Gallagher having escaped by not being on the cart when it set off. I take that as a positive conclusion. So we may see you next time. Take care.